The sun was melting into the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and crimson. Waves lapped lazily against the rocky coastline, but beneath the serene surface, the ocean harbored an unforgiving darkness. Elena Matthews adjusted the strap of her camera bag, the weight a comforting presence against her shoulder. As a journalist, she had covered riots, political upheaval, and wars. Yet something about this coastal town made her pulse quicken not from fear, but from the undeniable sense that danger lurked beneath every shadow. The salty wind whipped her hair across her face as she squinted at the horizon, where fishing boats bobbed lazily, unaware of the storm brewing on the shore. She had been following a tip about corruption in the local authorities, a story that could make headlines worldwide. The villagers had been wary of outsiders, their eyes wary, and some had gone so far as to warn her to leave. But Elena was relentless. Fear had never guided her choices, and the danger only sharpened her senses. She took a few careful steps toward the water, her boots sinking slightly into the wet sand. Every footfall echoed in her mind, a metronome of anticipation that made the scene both beautiful and ominous. Suddenly, movement at the edge of the tree line caught her attention. Figures emerged, silhouetted by the fading light. They moved quickly, deliberately, with a precision that spoke of experience. Elena's instincts screamed at her to run, but before she could react, strong hands grabbed her from behind. Her camera slipped from her grasp and fell into the sand with a muffled thud. She struggled, twisting in their grip, but the attackers were relentless, their strength overwhelming. Panic surged through her veins, and the wind seemed to carry her screams into the distance, unheard. One of the operatives leaned close, his face obscured by a mask. He muttered something in a language she did not understand, but the tone left no doubt in her mind about his intentions. Her heart pounded violently, every beat a reminder that she might not see tomorrow. They dragged her to the edge of the rocky shoreline. The waves crashed hungrily against the jagged rocks, as if they sensed the chaos about to unfold. Elena's boots slipped on the wet stones. She screamed again, a desperate sound swallowed by the ocean breeze, but there was no time for hesitation. And then they threw her. The water swallowed her in an icy embrace, stealing the air from her lungs. Shock stole her ability to think as the current pulled her down, deeper into the merciless sea. Panic flared, her limbs flailing against the relentless pressure, but instinct took over. Elena kicked and swam, breaking the surface for a gasp of air before being slammed under again. Salt burned her eyes and filled her mouth, making it impossible to cry out. Her mind raced with memories, her family, her friends, the life she had fought so hard to live. Survival instinct collided with raw terror, and a strange clarity emerged. She had to fight, no matter the cost. Somewhere above, the fading light reflected off the waves, creating illusions that danced on the water's surface. Elena clung to fragments of driftwood, her fingers raw and bleeding from jagged edges, her body screaming with cold. She was alone, completely alone, yet she refused to surrender. Every stroke was a defiance against death, every gasp of air a small victory. Hours, or was it minutes, seemed to pass in endless repetition of survival. The ocean was merciless, a force of nature that did not care about courage or determination. Unseen beneath the waves, eyes watched. Satellite feeds relayed the chaos in real time to a secure location thousands of miles away. The U.S. Navy SEALs had been tracking the region for weeks, anticipating the unrest. Commander Hayes, a veteran of countless operations, studied the screens with quiet intensity. "There she is," he muttered, pointing to a small blip struggling in the ocean currents. Around him, the team moved with practiced precision, their faces calm but alert. Each member understood the stakes. Lives depended on their skill, their focus, and their ability to act without hesitation. The contrast between Elena's desperation and the team's controlled preparation could not have been more striking. She fought against the waves with every ounce of strength, exhausted and bleeding, while the SEALs synchronized their approach with the meticulous planning of a symphony. Tiny boats were deployed, reconnaissance drones hovered above, and every current, wind gust, and possible movement was calculated. The ocean was vast, but the team's knowledge made them invisible hunters, moving with stealth and lethal efficiency. Elena could not see them, yet every element of the environment, the way the waves shifted, the direction of the wind, was being used to guide her towards safety. As darkness fell, the ocean became a living entity, swallowing sound and light alike. Elena's body was numb from cold, her lungs gasping for air, but she refused to surrender to panic. She clung to driftwood, exhausted, and drifted further from the shore, feeling as though the world itself had abandoned her. And then, faintly, she sensed it. A shadow beneath the waves, moving in tandem with the currents. She blinked, unsure if it was hallucination, exhaustion, or hope. Her heart leapt. Perhaps she was not alone after all. Commander Hayes and his team were closer than she could imagine. Every step of their approach had been measured. The insertion point, the timing, the trajectory. Even as Elena struggled against exhaustion and hypothermia, the SEALs adjusted for variables she could not comprehend: the strength of the current, the shifting wind, the movement of the enemy. They were trained for the impossible, and this was their mission, to bring her home alive. And somewhere deep in her survival-focused haze, Elena clung to a fragile hope, the glimmer of a promise that the ocean would not be her grave. Minutes stretched like hours. Her strength waned and darkness edged her vision. Panic threatened to overtake clarity, but she forced herself to move. The water slapped against her, pulling her down, teasing her with the false hope of the surface, yet she kicked with stubborn resilience. Then, almost imperceptibly, she felt a current nudging her upward, guiding her gently toward what she could not yet see. Somewhere above, a presence waited, a force unseen, yet potent enough to bend the ocean's cruelty toward survival. The ocean, vast and indifferent, had tested her, but it had also led her to the threshold of salvation. Elena Matthews, terrified yet unbroken, continued to fight with every remaining breath, unaware that a team of America's most elite warriors had already declared this ocean their domain. In the distance, night descended fully, shrouding the world in darkness. But hope, fragile yet persistent, glimmered like a beacon in the abyss. The storm was coming, and it would change everything. Thousands of miles away from the chaos of the open sea, in a secure underground facility hidden beneath the rolling hills of Virginia, a group of men and women moved with quiet precision. The room hummed with activity, yet it was a controlled, deliberate kind of energy, the kind that comes from years of training, discipline, and knowing that lives depended on every decision made within these walls. Screens lined the walls, each displaying satellite imagery, encrypted communications, and real-time drone footage from across the globe. The faint buzz of electronics and the soft tap of fingers on keyboards filled the space like a mechanical heartbeat. Commander Jack Hayes, a veteran of countless operations, stood at the center of the room, his sharp eyes scanning the latest intel. His face was etched with years of experience, each line a story of missions that had pushed the limits of human endurance. He was tall, lean, and radiated the calm authority of someone who had stared death in the eye and returned unflinching. "She's alive," he murmured, pointing to a small, blinking dot on the satellite feed, Elena Matthews, struggling against the ocean currents. "And we're going to get her back." Around him, the SEAL team moved with the fluidity of a well-oiled machine. Each member had a specific role, and each role was executed with absolute precision. One operator monitored drone feeds, analyzing every wave pattern, every potential threat along the coastline. Another scanned communication channels for encrypted chatter, tracking the kidnappers' movements. Specialists calculated tides, wind speeds, and current shifts, feeding this data into the team's strategy. Everything mattered, down to the smallest variable, because in their world, mistakes were deadly. Hayes tapped his fingers on the table, considering the options. The operation required more than brute force. It demanded strategy, patience, and the element of surprise. The team would have to approach the hostile coastline undetected, deploy underwater to avoid radar, and reach Elena before her captors could react. Each SEAL understood the risks, enemy patrols, rough seas, and the unpredictability of the ocean itself, but none questioned the mission. Courage wasn't optional. It was mandatory. Drones are online. Weather conditions are optimal. Extraction point is confirmed, reported Lieutenant Alvarez, her voice steady and precise. She was a reconnaissance expert, trained to predict enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. Currents are strong near the shore. If she drifts further, we risk losing her. We need to move now. Hayes nodded. Time was not on their side. Every minute Elena spent in the water increased the danger exponentially. Hypothermia, exhaustion, and enemy capture were all variables that could tip the scales. Hayes turned to the team, outlining the plan with surgical clarity. Insertion via submarine, 40 kilometers off the coast. Divers in 3 teams. One secures the perimeter. Another moves inland to neutralize threats, and the final team reaches Matthews. Remember, silence is mandatory. Speed is critical. Lives depend on our precision. He paused, letting the gravity of the mission sink in. This is more than a rescue. It's a statement. No one can threaten our people or operate with impunity in waters we control. Each team member absorbed the orders like a mantra. Training had forged them into shadows, silent, invisible, unstoppable. Their minds worked in perfect synchronization, anticipating every possible scenario, every potential threat. They knew the stakes, but they did not dwell on fear. Fear had no place here. Only action mattered. The world outside could wait. Right now, their mission was absolute. Bring Elena Matthews home alive. Meanwhile, back in the coastal town, Elena struggled to remain conscious. The ocean had become a living, breathing entity, each wave threatening to drag her under. Yet, unbeknownst to her, she was no longer alone. Miles above, a network of drones tracked her every movement, sending live feeds to the SEAL team. Every shiver, every gasp of air was recorded, analyzed, and used to predict her drift. The operators adjusted for currents and wind shifts, calculating the exact moment to insert their extraction team with flawless timing. Hayes leaned over a console, his eyes scanning multiple feeds simultaneously. The kidnappers had assumed the ocean would claim her, that she would be swallowed by waves or dragged to shore to perish. They had underestimated the United States' most elite maritime operators. "Prepare divers," Hayes commanded. "We move in 10 minutes." The team acknowledged with silent nods. Equipment was checked, weapons loaded, and rechecked. Oxygen tanks, communication lines, and navigation tools were all calibrated. This was not improvisation. It was precision engineering. The insertion point was chosen with care. A submarine, disguised beneath the waves, would transport the divers close to the shore undetected. From there, the team would deploy in small groups, moving under the cover of night. The ocean's darkness would be their ally, masking their approach, concealing their intent. Every decision had been rehearsed hundreds of times, yet every mission carried unpredictability. They were trained for the unexpected, prepared to adapt, and committed to succeed no matter the cost. As the SEALs readied themselves, Hayes allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. He remembered his own experiences: cold water, endless nights, the sting of danger at every turn. But this mission was different. There was a life at stake, one of innocence and courage. Elena Matthews represented more than just a journalist. She was a symbol of resilience, a person who dared to seek truth in a world that often sought to hide it. And the SEALs were the guardians, ready to enforce that truth with every ounce of skill and discipline they possessed. The team moved into position. Submarine hatches opened, and divers slipped into the water like ghosts. Silent, efficient, and deadly, they adjusted to the ocean's currents, moving closer to Elena's drifting position. Every stroke, every movement was calculated. Every second counted. Above, drones maintained surveillance, feeding real-time updates to the command center. Hayes' eyes never left the screens. He knew the sea's unpredictability, but he trusted his team. They had trained for this moment for years, and now the culmination of that training was unfolding. Hours seemed to stretch into an eternity for Elena. She floated, barely conscious, her body numb from cold. Each wave was a brutal adversary, pulling her deeper into despair. And yet, instinct kept her moving, propelling her toward survival. Somewhere above, hidden in the shadows, her rescuers advanced, synchronized with the rhythm of the ocean. The SEAL's presence was invisible, a silent shield between her and certain death. Every current, every gust of wind was accounted for, and every movement brought her closer to safety. Finally, Hayes saw the exact moment to strike. The divers adjusted their course, approaching from angles the enemy would not expect. They moved as one, a coordinated force capable of overwhelming any opposition. Elena, unaware of the invisible guardians surrounding her, continued to battle the ocean, her strength waning but her will unbroken. In a matter of minutes, the rescue would begin. Every element had aligned perfectly: the night, the tides, the training, and the courage of those committed to her survival. The calm efficiency of the SEAL team contrasted sharply with the chaos of Elena's struggle. Her life had been reduced to fighting each wave, each breath, each second of consciousness. Yet she remained alive, buoyed by determination and an instinctive refusal to surrender. And somewhere in the darkness, unseen, the Navy SEALs prepared to enter the water, to claim victory over the storm, and to demonstrate, once again, why they ruled not only the land, but the unforgiving seas. As the first divers slipped beneath the waves, Hayes whispered almost to himself, "Let's bring her home." The mission, meticulously planned and flawlessly executed, was about to begin. And for Elena Matthews, the fight for survival had entered a new phase, one in which skill, courage, and discipline would converge to turn near certain death into a triumph of human resilience. The night air was heavy, a blanket of darkness stretching across the restless ocean. From miles above, satellite eyes scanned the waters in unblinking vigilance, feeding data to the U.S. Navy SEAL Command Center. Elena Matthews, battered by waves and exhaustion, drifted helplessly. Her body shivered violently from cold, her limbs weak and trembling, but her mind refused to surrender. Every gasp for air was a triumph, every stroke against the relentless tide a declaration that she would survive. She had no idea that unseen eyes tracked her every movement, calculating, predicting, and preparing for a rescue she could scarcely imagine. Back in the command center, Commander Hayes studied multiple screens simultaneously. Small blips represented potential threats, each movement of the kidnappers cataloged and analyzed. The operatives who had thrown Elena into the ocean believed they had covered their tracks perfectly, blending into the labyrinth of islands and inlets along the coast. But the SEALs had anticipated every possibility. Using a combination of satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and eye-assisted predictive modeling, they charted the movements of the enemy with an accuracy that was almost supernatural. "They think she's lost," Hayes muttered, his voice barely audible. "But she's just a target waiting to be saved." "Lieutenant Alvarez." eyes sharp behind her night vision goggles, pinpointed a suspicious vessel. Patrol boat, 30 meters out from the northern inlet. Could be the captors regrouping. Hayes nodded. Mark it. That's one of our obstacles. Divers adjust course to avoid detection. Every detail mattered. A single mistake could mean Elena drifting into enemy hands or worse. Each SEAL operator understood that success demanded perfection, and perfection demanded patience. Hours, minutes, and seconds stretched, yet the team remained calm, methodical, and unyielding. Meanwhile, Elena's body fought a war of its own. Salt water burned her lungs as she gasped for breath. Her muscles cramped, joints ached, and hypothermia threatened to steal her consciousness with each passing moment. She felt the ocean's vast emptiness pressing down upon her, a cold, indifferent adversary that tested every ounce of human will. And yet, instinct guided her movements, a combination of desperation, training from previous adventures, and raw survival instinct. Her mind, though hazed with exhaustion, remained alert to the smallest cues of change in the current, the shadow of a distant object, the whisper of a wave against a rock. From above, drones adjusted their paths, following Elena's drift while maintaining maximum stealth. Small cameras captured every movement of the kidnappers' vessels, recording patterns and predicting their next actions. The SEALs knew the captors would be aggressive, expecting their prey to drown or tire. Yet the enemy underestimated the resolve of both the victim and the hunters pursuing her. Commanders back at the control center coordinated with precision. Every minute, every meter of drift was monitored, and every variable adjusted in real time. Elena's fate depended on calculation, courage, and timing. Hayes leaned over a console, eyes narrowing as he interpreted the data. "The ocean currents are shifting east," he said, voice steady but urgent. "If she drifts another kilometer, she'll be beyond visual range. We need the insertion point adjusted." Divers prepare for a 30-degree change in approach. The team responded without hesitation, adjusting equipment, recalibrating navigation, and replotting courses. Every member moved in perfect synchronization, anticipating contingencies the untrained mind could not comprehend. This was a chess game with real lives at stake, and the SEALs were 3 moves ahead at all times. Elena, unaware of the invisible guardians closing in, felt the first hints of hope. A faint light shimmered beneath the waves, almost imperceptible, reflecting off her blurred vision. Her heart surged, unsure if it was rescue or a hallucination born of exhaustion. She clung to a piece of floating debris, her fingers raw and bloodied, willing herself to remain conscious. Survival was no longer a matter of luck, it was a struggle of will, and her will was ironclad. Each breath, each movement, each flicker of consciousness was a defiance against the ocean's unrelenting embrace. The kidnappers, however, were growing anxious. Their small boats skirted the edges of the islands, scanning the water for signs of the journalist they believed lost. Their strategy was simple: let her drown or let her wash ashore, then claim credit for eliminating a threat. They did not anticipate invisible hunters, nor did they comprehend the vast resources silently deployed against them. From beneath the waves, divers adjusted their positions, observing enemy movements, waiting for the precise moment to strike. Timing was everything, and the SEALs were masters of it. Above, the control center continued to feed vital information to Hayes. Every wave pattern, every tide shift, every movement of the enemy vessels was analyzed, recorded, and translated into actionable strategy. "She's drifting northeast," Alvarez reported. "Currents are weakening near the northern inlet. Risk of capture is increasing. Divers should adjust course immediately." Hayes nodded sharply. "Move in, silent approach. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Our priority is Matthew's safety." The mission was clear, yet its execution demanded perfection. Elena's struggle intensified as the ocean grew rougher. Waves towered above her, tossing her like a ragdoll, threatening to swallow her consciousness. Her body screamed in pain, her muscles quivering violently, yet she persisted. Her mind wandered to memories of home, her family, the friends who worried for her, the life she had fought to build. Survival instinct collided with raw determination, forging a single, unyielding purpose: stay alive. Each second was a victory, each stroke a defiance, and each breath a testament to human resilience. Miles away, the SEALs were now in position. Underwater navigation lights glowed faintly through the darkness, marking the team's coordinated movements. 3 groups: perimeter, neutralization, and extraction, each executing flawlessly. Silent communications flowed through encrypted channels, guiding every operator. Hayes' voice, calm but commanding, directed the action with surgical precision. Team Alpha, secure the northern inlet. Team Bravo, intercept approaching patrols. Team Charlie, approach Matthews from the south. Move now. Within moments, the SEALs became invisible shadows, navigating the ocean currents with lethal efficiency. Time stretched and contracted unpredictably. The kidnappers remained unaware of the hunters surrounding them, oblivious to the invisible network orchestrating Elena's rescue. Waves crashed and the night wind howled, yet every operator remained focused. Above, satellites tracked movements. Below, divers moved like phantoms, and in the middle, a lone journalist battled nature itself, unknowing but protected by forces she could never see. This was the culmination of strategy, training, and courage converging on a single objective: survival. As the SEALs drew closer, Hayes allowed himself a brief thought. Elena's fight was the anchor for this mission. Her determination had carried her this far, but now precision and teamwork would carry her the rest of the way. The ocean that had been her adversary would soon become her pathway to safety, guided by the invisible guardians who ruled not just the waters, but the fate of those who dared to defy them. And in the silence of the night, amid crashing waves and hidden dangers, the hunters prepared to reveal themselves, turning the tide in favor of life over death. Finally, a faint glimmer appeared on Elena's horizon, a shadow beneath the waves, moving in perfect alignment with the ocean's flow. Her exhausted mind barely registered it, yet her body instinctively moved toward it. Somewhere in that darkness, the SEALs had entered her world, silent and unseen, turning an impossible situation into a calculated rescue. The ocean was no longer a trap. It was a stage for precision, bravery, and the unmatched power of America's elite maritime warriors. Survival was no longer a question. It was imminent. The ocean had become a living entity, vast and merciless. Waves towered like jagged walls of steel, slamming into Elena Matthews with every heartbeat. Her limbs screamed in agony, salt stung her eyes, and her lungs burned from the struggle to draw air between violent surges. Every movement required her to dig deeper than she thought possible. Panic clawed at her chest, threatening to drag her into the abyss, but instinct and sheer will kept her afloat. She wrapped her trembling fingers around a floating fragment of debris, its rough surface cutting into her palms, but it was enough to prevent her from sinking completely. The night was pitch black, yet the world beneath the waves was alive with movement. A shadow passed silently beneath her, almost imperceptible. It was the first physical sign that help was near. Underwater, the SEAL divers navigated the ocean with practiced precision. Each operator moved with stealth, using the currents as cover, approaching Elena without disturbing the surface or alerting the enemy. The ocean's unpredictability was their challenge, but it was also their ally. Every shift in the tide, every wave, had been analyzed and accounted for. The SEALs had mastered this environment, bending its chaos into the perfect stage for their operation. Elena's mind flickered in and out of consciousness. Her body ached from exhaustion, and the numbing cold of the ocean. Each stroke was a battle, each gasp of air a victory. She remembered the kidnappers' masked faces, the grip of their hands, and the moment she had been thrown into the water. The memory made her shiver, but it also ignited determination. She refused to be a victim. Somewhere beyond the waves, unseen and deadly, the seals were moving toward her. Their presence was a promise she could not yet see. Commander Hayes monitored every movement from the command center. Team Alpha, perimeter secure. Team Bravo, neutralize patrols. Team Charlie, prepare for extraction, he ordered, his voice calm yet commanding. Operators executed his commands with silent precision. The divers adjusted for currents, navigated past underwater obstacles, and closed the distance to Elena. Above, drones kept surveillance on enemy vessels, ensuring that no movement would go unnoticed. Every variable had been considered, every angle anticipated. This was not improvisation. It was the culmination of years of training, strategy, and relentless discipline. Elena floundered as a wave slammed into her, tossing her sideways. Her hands slipped from the debris, and she gasped violently for air, coughing up a mouthful of salt water. Her muscles trembled uncontrollably, fatigue threatening to paralyze her entirely. For a moment, she let herself sink, overwhelmed by despair. Then, a faint glimmer beneath the waves caught her attention. At first, she thought it was a trick of the moonlight, but it moved with purpose, slicing through the water with controlled force. Hope surged, tentative yet undeniable. Somewhere beneath the ocean, unseen forces were converging to save her. The SEALs were now within striking distance. Their divers, equipped with advanced underwater propulsion units, approached silently. Each operator carried specialized gear for extraction and combat, calibrated for both stealth and efficiency. Communication flowed through hand signals and waterproof radios, linking the team in perfect synchronization. Commander Hayes watched the operation unfold on multiple screens, monitoring every pulse, every flicker of movement. Alpha Team, engage obstacles if necessary. Bravo Team, keep patrols distracted. Charlie, intercept Matthews now, he instructed. The ocean became a stage for a silent ballet of lethal precision. Elena's struggle against the waves intensified. Her body shook violently, her arms heavy as lead, her legs barely responding to the frantic rhythm of her survival strokes. Each breath was a battle, each heartbeat a defiance against the cold embrace of the sea. She could feel herself drifting farther from the shore, farther from hope. And yet, instinct guided her toward the faint shadows beneath the surface. Her mind, though fogged by fatigue and fear, clung to the possibility of rescue, a fragile thread keeping her from surrendering to the ocean's relentless pull. Above her, enemy patrols scanned the water, unaware of the invisible forces moving beneath their radar. Their small boats bobbed on the waves, searching for the prize they assumed had been lost. Every moment they delayed, every distraction they encountered, allowed the SEALs to close in on their target. Operator after operator moved like phantoms through the darkness, converging on Elena's position with lethal precision. Above, the drones recorded every movement, every pattern, feeding data back to Hayes and his command team, ensuring that nothing was left to chance. Finally, one of the divers broke through the surface, reaching for Elena, strong arms wrapped around her, lifting her from the water's grip. Relief and disbelief washed over her as she was hoisted into the safety of the approaching SEAL team. She trembled violently, shivering from cold and exhaustion, but she was alive. Around her, the team moved like shadows, neutralizing threats silently, ensuring that no harm would reach her during extraction. Each operator knew their role, executing it flawlessly, and Elena realized, in a fleeting moment of clarity, the immense scale of skill and coordination it had taken to save her life. The ocean, once an enemy, became a silent witness to the SEAL's mastery. Waves crashed around them, but the team remained unfazed, moving with calm efficiency as they guided Elena toward the safety of their submerged vehicle. Her body shook, her teeth chattered, but her heart swelled with gratitude. She could barely comprehend the orchestration, the coordination, the sheer expertise that had converged to bring her from the brink of death to safety. The ocean that had seemed infinite and merciless was now a conduit for triumph, shaped and commanded by human skill and courage. Hayes monitored the extraction with quiet satisfaction. "Phase 1 complete," he said, allowing himself a brief exhale. The divers maneuvered Elena into the vehicle, checking her condition and preparing for departure. The patrols remained unaware of the precision and efficiency that had rendered them powerless, unable to prevent the rescue that unfolded beneath their very noses. Above, the night sky stretched endlessly, reflecting the calm that had descended over the waters, a stark contrast to the chaos that had gripped Elena just moments before. As Elena was secured and guided toward safety, her mind struggled to process the magnitude of the rescue. She had survived the ocean, defied exhaustion, and endured unimaginable fear. Yet it was the presence of the SEALs, the unseen guardians, that had ensured her survival. The waves, once hostile, now carried her toward life, toward safety, toward a realization of human resilience and the extraordinary skill of those who had trained to dominate even the most unforgiving environments. The ocean, vast and indifferent, had tested every limit of Elena's endurance. And yet, in the shadowed depths, a team of highly trained warriors had imposed order, discipline, and precision, ensuring that she would not be claimed by the abyss. Survival, once a tenuous hope, had become certainty. The sea, the waves, the currents, all had been tamed, if only temporarily, by the unwavering expertise of the Navy SEALs. And as the first glimmers of dawn touched the horizon, Elena Matthews realized that her ordeal had not been fought alone. The ocean had been vast, relentless, and terrifying, but it had also been the arena in which courage, skill, and discipline converged to reclaim her life. The abyss had tested her, and though she had fought fiercely, it was the SEAL's mastery that had ultimately guided her from the edge of death into the light of survival. Night had deepened, wrapping the ocean in impenetrable darkness. The waves whispered against the hull of the SEAL's submerged vehicle as they approached the final objective. Elena Matthews, now clinging weakly to a life jacket, could barely comprehend the orchestration unfolding around her. She was alive, yes, but the ocean still loomed as a chaotic adversary, and danger remained ever present above the surface. Through the shadows, the SEALs moved with a precision that blurred the line between human and legend. Every stroke beneath the waves, every movement on the surface, was part of a silent ballet aimed at reclaiming a life teetering on the edge of death. Commander Hayes had watched Elena's extraction reach the crucial stage. The patrols were within range of neutralization, and the SEALs had to act without warning. Communication flowed silently, encrypted and brief. Hand signals replaced words. Eyes exchanged entire conversations, and every member understood the gravity of the moment. Team Alpha, intercept the Northern Patrol. Team Bravo, flank the perimeter. Team Charlie, secure Matthews and prepare for extraction. Hayes whispered, though his words carried the weight of command and the expectation of flawless execution. This was a mission where hesitation meant failure and death. Above the waves, the enemy remained unaware of the silent predators closing in. Their patrol boat creaked as it drifted, scanning the waters with flashlights that cut swaths of light into the blackness. The kidnappers had assumed the ocean would conceal Elena's fate, that her struggle would end without intervention. They did not know that below them, shadows moved with deadly intent, that human skill and discipline could bend even the vast, merciless ocean to their will. Each operator calculated the patrol's every potential reaction, predicting movements with near-perfect accuracy. A flash of movement beneath the water revealed the first divers closing in. They were near invisible, propelled by compact underwater thrusters, weapons ready, eyes scanning for threats. Every action had been rehearsed hundreds of times, but the unpredictability of the ocean made real-world execution a challenge only true SEALs could manage. As they approached, the operators synchronized their movements perfectly with the shifting currents, each step calculated to maximize stealth while preparing for lethal efficiency. A first strike would be silent, precise, and devastating. Elena, shivering violently, clung to the life jacket as her rescuers closed in. She was unaware of the danger looming just above the surface, the patrols who could spot her and drag her back into captivity. The SEAL's presence was invisible to her, yet she could feel the sudden shift in the water's rhythm, the subtle currents as if the ocean itself had changed its course. The operators were ready to turn chaos into order, converting the hostile environment into a controlled battleground, where every movement had purpose and every breath was calculated. The first engagement was swift and silent. Team Alpha struck the patrol boat from below, using compact submersible devices to disable engines and communications. In moments, the boat drifted powerless, unaware of what had rendered it harmless. Above, Team Bravo kept watch for any additional threats, their movements hidden by the dark waves. Each SEAL executed with calm efficiency, neutralizing threats without alerting others to their presence. This was more than a display of skill. It was the art of silent domination over the elements and the enemy. Elena's heart raced, not yet fully aware that she was now within the protective grasp of her rescuers. Her body trembled from the cold, but every flinch of movement carried her closer to safety. Below the waves, Team Charlie reached her position. The lead diver extended a gloved hand, grasping hers firmly and lifting her toward the submerged vehicle. Relief surged through her, mixing with disbelief and awe. She had fought the ocean, yet it was the human mastery beneath the waves that had ultimately guided her toward life. The operation was far from over. The kidnappers remained in the area, attempting to regroup and locate the missing journalist. Hayes' team maintained strict discipline, suppressing engagement until extraction was fully underway. Above the waves, the patrols drifted aimlessly, unaware that their coordination had been meticulously dismantled. Underwater, divers carried Elena with caution, each movement calculated to prevent detection, each approach designed to guarantee success. The SEALs operated like a single organism, every member's action reinforcing the others. Suddenly, a flicker of motion near the enemy boat threatened exposure. A sniper from Team Bravo raised a silenced weapon, neutralizing the threat with a single shot. The patrol remained oblivious, believing they were safe in the darkness. Meanwhile, Team Alpha prepared additional submersible devices to ensure no further pursuit could interfere with the extraction. The ocean's surface, once chaotic, had become a stage for precision, control, and the unparalleled skill of America's most elite warriors. Elena, now in the safe embrace of Team Charlie, felt herself being guided toward the submerged vehicle. Every wave, every current, every element that had fought against her was now aligned in service of her survival. The divers navigated expertly, avoiding obstacles, anticipating enemy reactions, and maintaining complete control over the operation. She shivered, not only from cold, but from awe at the orchestration surrounding her. Her mind struggled to comprehend how a handful of individuals could dominate the vast and merciless ocean with such certainty. Above the waves, the final threats were neutralized with similar efficiency. Team Alpha and Bravo coordinated silently, striking in perfect unison. The kidnappers' boats were immobilized, engines destroyed, and patrols disoriented. Within minutes, the immediate danger had been removed, yet every SEAL remained vigilant. There could be no mistakes. Any lapse could endanger Elena or the team. The ocean had been conquered in a dance of shadow, strategy, and lethal skill, leaving only the precise execution of the extraction remaining. As the vehicle ascended toward the surface, Elena clung to the operators, shivering violently but alive. The SEALs moved with calm efficiency, communicating silently through hand signals and subtle movements. Commander Hayes observed from the command center, monitoring each stage with intense focus. "Extraction complete in 30 seconds, he murmured, his voice a mix of relief and respect for the operators executing the mission with flawless precision. Finally, the vehicle broke the surface. The night sky reflected in the ocean around them, calm once more. Elena Matthews, exhausted, shivering, and awestruck, realized she had survived the unthinkable. The ocean, the waves, the currents, all had been neutralized by unseen skill, precision, and relentless human discipline. The SEALs had acted not only as rescuers, but as masters of an environment that few dared to dominate. Every operator remained vigilant until the team reached a secure rendezvous point, ensuring that Elena's rescue was not just a success, but flawless. The first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, casting a pale light over the ocean. Elena, wrapped in blankets provided by the team, began to comprehend the magnitude of what had just occurred. She had been on the brink of death, drifting in a merciless sea, yet human skill, courage, and coordination had turned her near-fatal situation into survival. The SEALs had struck without warning, dominated the environment, neutralized the enemy, and ensured her extraction, all without a single misstep. She was alive because they existed, because they had mastered the impossible. Hayes allowed himself a moment to exhale. The operation, the culmination of hours of planning and precise execution, had been perfect. Every threat had been neutralized, every variable accounted for, and the journalist was safe. And while the world above might never know the details, the ocean had witnessed the full extent of human skill, discipline, and bravery. The SEALs had entered the abyss and emerged victorious, silent, lethal, and unbroken. Elena Matthews, trembling but alive, realized the truth she would never forget. The ocean could challenge, intimidate, and terrify, but when faced with the unyielding precision of those trained to rule it, even the vastest abyss could be conquered. And as dawn broke, painting the waves in gold and crimson, she understood that her life had been reclaimed not by luck, but by the relentless skill and bravery of the Navy SEALs, the invisible force that truly ruled the water. The night was a cloak of shadows, but the SEALs moved like ghosts, each operator a perfect combination of discipline and lethal skill. Elena Matthews, now wrapped in a thermal blanket aboard the submerged vehicle, shivered violently. Her teeth chattered uncontrollably, and her body still trembled from exhaustion and shock. Her mind, however, was beginning to register what was happening around her, the incredible precision, coordination, and courage of the people who had come for her. She could hear the muted sounds of movement above and beneath the waves, the enemy's patrols scrambling, unaware of the fate awaiting them. Commander Jack Hayes had calculated every detail of the final confrontation. The kidnappers, realizing their patrols had been disabled, were regrouping on a rocky outcrop near the shore. Their faces were masks of panic and defiance, their hands tightening around weapons they had thought would guarantee control. They were about to discover the true reach and skill of the Navy SEALs. Hayes' voice was calm, but firm as he issued orders through the encrypted radio channels. Team Alpha, flank left. Team Bravo, cover the right. Team Charlie, intercept Matthews and neutralize threats. Engage only on my mark. The operators responded with silent acknowledgement, every movement precise, every calculation exact. The first strike was subtle yet decisive. A flash of light and a silent explosion from submersible devices immobilized one of the remaining boats. cutting off any potential escape routes. The kidnappers shouted, startled and disoriented, trying to regain control. Their panic betrayed their lack of training, their fear feeding the SEALs' advantage. The operators moved like shadows across rocks and shallow water, silent, unseen, lethal. Each step had been rehearsed countless times, but execution in real time against live adversaries required skill only honed through years of training in the harshest conditions. Elena's view was blurred by the darkness and her own exhaustion, but she caught glimpses of movement shadows darting across rocks, flashes of equipment, and the subtle changes in the water's flow. She realized instinctively that she was no longer in immediate danger. Someone or several someones was controlling the situation with absolute authority. Her fear, raw and primal, began to give way to awe and gratitude. Her body still ached, but a fragile hope blossomed in her chest. She would survive. On the rocky outcrop, the kidnappers tried to regroup. Their shouts carried across the waves, but the SEALs were already in position. Team Alpha moved silently along the left flank, closing in on the first group of enemies. Team Bravo mirrored their movements on the right, cutting off escape routes and creating a corridor for Team Charlie to secure Elena. The coordination was flawless, a testament to years of training and the unyielding discipline that defined the SEALs. Every potential move by the kidnappers had been predicted, every risk mitigated. The first confrontation was brutal, but efficient. A pair of kidnappers lunged toward the shoreline, attempting to take cover behind rocks. Team Alpha neutralized them in a flurry of controlled action-swift strikes. Silenced weapons and rapid coordination ensured no alert was raised beyond their immediate presence. Above, Team Bravo signaled success with a subtle hand gesture, maintaining the silent chain of command. Team Charlie, meanwhile, kept Elena secure, ensuring her safety as the remaining threats were systematically removed. The ocean roared, waves crashing against rocks, but the SEALs moved undisturbed, turning chaos into order. Elena's fear ebbed as she witnessed the operators' precision. She saw the kidnappers attempting to regroup, only to be intercepted at every turn. The SEALs' movements were synchronized, each operator aware of the other's position, each action reinforcing the next. It was a deadly dance, invisible to the untrained eye, but clear to those who understood skill, training, and lethal discipline. Elena realized, even in her exhausted state, that she was witnessing something extraordinary, the embodiment of human capability, courage, and strategy in its most refined form. The remaining kidnappers were desperate, their faces twisted in rage and fear. They fired sporadically, but each shot was anticipated, each movement countered. The SEALs moved with quiet efficiency, neutralizing threats without exposing themselves unnecessarily. Operator after operator executed their role with perfect timing. Team Bravo ensured that no backup could arrive from hidden coves, while Team Alpha secured the perimeter. The kidnappers' confidence crumbled under the silent, relentless pressure applied by forces they could neither see nor predict. Elena's rescuers now formed a protective perimeter around her. Team Charlie guided her to a shallow cove where the vehicle could safely extract her. Her muscles were trembling uncontrollably, her lungs burned from exertion and fear, yet she felt a profound sense of safety. The operators moved like shadows, constantly aware of every threat, every wave, and every potential hazard. The confrontation had reached its peak, and every element, ocean, enemy, and environment was under the SEALs' absolute control. Commander Hayes monitored the final stages of the operation with an unwavering focus. His eyes moved between multiple feeds, each one revealing the precise execution of the mission. "Finalize neutralization," he commanded. Silenced weapons cracked in the distance, and the last pockets of resistance fell. The kidnappers' attempts at coordination had been systematically dismantled, their control stripped away in moments of precision and expertise. Every operator knew the stakes, and every action reinforced the chain of safety that ensured Elena would survive. At last, the confrontation ended. The kidnappers were neutralized, bound, or incapacitated, and the immediate threat to Elena had been eliminated. The ocean, once a chaotic adversary, now mirrored the calm efficiency of the SEAL's operation. Waves lapped gently against the rocks, the only sound in the aftermath of a perfectly executed mission. Elena's body sagged from exhaustion, but a smile of disbelief and gratitude crossed her face. She had been rescued, not by luck, but by skill, strategy, and the unwavering courage of those who had trained to dominate the impossible. The operators moved swiftly to secure the area and prepare for extraction. Elena was guided to the vehicle, blankets wrapped around her shivering frame. Her gratitude was quiet but palpable, a mixture of awe, relief, and respect for the people who had risked everything to reclaim her life. Commander Hayes allowed a brief moment of satisfaction. Every element of the mission had been executed flawlessly, and the objective had been achieved without compromise. The SEALs had confronted not only human threats, but the unpredictable forces of nature itself, and they had emerged victorious. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Alana Matthews reflected on the ordeal. The ocean had tested her to the brink of death. The kidnappers had sought to claim her, and yet she had survived. Her body was battered, her mind exhausted, but her spirit remained unbroken. And in the shadows, the SEALs, the invisible guardians of the seas, had demonstrated the full extent of their skill, precision, and courage. Survival, she realized, was not merely about willpower. It was about mastery, discipline, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. For Commander Hayes and his team, the mission was a testament to the power of preparation, training, and unwavering focus. Every operator had executed their role flawlessly, every threat neutralized without unnecessary risk, and every variable accounted for. They had entered the abyss and imposed order on chaos, ensuring that an innocent life had been reclaimed. The SEAL's presence had turned the tide, transforming what could have been tragedy into triumph. Elena's journey was far from over, but in that moment, as she looked at the operators around her, she understood a profound truth. The ocean, vast and merciless, had met its match in human skill and courage, and she would never forget the faces, the discipline, and the bravery of those who had fought in the shadows to bring her home. The confrontation had ended, but its lessons the dominance of skill, the power of precision, and the triumph of courage would remain with her forever. The first pale light of dawn spilled over the horizon, casting a silver glow across the now calm ocean. Waves lapped gently at the submerged vehicle where Elena Matthews rested, wrapped in the warmth of thermal blankets provided by her rescuers. Her body was numb from cold, her muscles trembling uncontrollably from the exertion and hours of unrelenting fear. Her mind, however, was alive in a way it hadn't been since the first moments she hit the water. The chaos, panic, and terror that had dominated her every thought for nearly a full day were finally giving way to awareness. And with that awareness came gratitude, awe, and disbelief. She looked around at the team that had saved her. The SEALs moved with quiet efficiency, checking equipment, securing the perimeter, and maintaining constant vigilance. Their faces were calm, controlled, yet in their eyes she glimpsed a quiet intensity, a fierce dedication to mission and life alike. Elena struggled to comprehend the precision, coordination, and bravery required to orchestrate such a rescue. Every wave, every current, every obstacle she had battled had been accounted for by these invisible guardians of the ocean. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. She had survived not because of luck, but because of mastery, training, and courage, the likes of which she had never witnessed before. Commander Jack Hayes approached her, his expression calm, but carrying the weight of every decision he had made during the operation. "You're safe now," he said quietly, his voice steady but filled with authority. Elena managed a small nod, unable to form words initially. Her throat was raw, her chest heaving with exhausted breaths, but slowly, she began to articulate the mixture of relief and wonder swelling inside her. I don't even know how to thank you," she finally whispered. Hayes shook his head slightly, offering a modest but firm reply. "You survived because you never gave up. We were just the ones who made sure you had a chance." As Elena's body began to thaw from the intense cold, she reflected on the moments that had nearly claimed her life. The crushing force of the waves, the relentless current, and the terrifying unknown of the ocean's depths had been overwhelming. And yet, in those moments of desperation, instinct and determination had propelled her forward. Every flailing stroke, every gasp for air, every cling to debris had been acts of defiance against the abyss. She realized now that survival had been a partnership between her willpower and the SEAL's unparalleled skill, a collaboration that had transcended human expectation. Around her, the SEALs continued their work with disciplined focus. Team Alpha double-checked the disabled patrol boats, ensuring that no threats remained in the vicinity. Team Bravo scanned the perimeter, confirming that no hostile forces could approach unnoticed. Team Charlie, the extraction team that had guided Elena to safety, moved to secure the transport route, ensuring a seamless path to a nearby rendezvous point where she would finally be fully removed from danger. The orchestration of every movement, every check, every precaution was seamless, almost surgical in its precision. Elena's thoughts drifted back to the confrontations, the moments when fear had nearly overtaken her. The memory of the kidnappers' masked faces, the violent pull of their hands, and the icy grip of the ocean was vivid, but it was now tempered by the understanding of what had just occurred. She had been immersed in the most extreme environment imaginable, and yet human skill had reshaped that environment into a path of survival. The SEALs had moved invisibly, silently, like shadows in the night, neutralizing threats and controlling variables that she hadn't even noticed. It was almost beyond comprehension. Hayes knelt briefly beside her, offering both reassurance and information. "We've secured the area, neutralized all threats, and your extraction is nearly complete. You're going to be safe now. Do you have any injuries besides hypothermia?" Elena shook her head weakly. Her body ached, every joint stiff and sore, but there were no serious injuries. The SEAL medics were already preparing to conduct a thorough check once they reached the rendezvous point. Even in exhaustion, Elena marveled at their preparation. Every potential risk had been anticipated, every contingency accounted for, and every action executed flawlessly. As the vehicle began to move toward the extraction point, Elena allowed herself to breathe, to absorb the calm after the storm. Her eyes scanned the horizon, watching the sun rise in soft hues of gold and crimson. The ocean, which had been a terrifying adversary, now mirrored the calm and control of the SEALs. Waves rolled gently against the sides of the submerged vehicle, the chaotic rhythm replaced by a serene cadence that reflected the triumph of human skill and courage over the raw power of nature. While Elena's thoughts were consumed with the enormity of her survival, she also reflected on the men and women who had orchestrated it. The precision, coordination, and discipline required to execute such a complex mission were staggering. Every operator had performed flawlessly, acting as invisible shields against threats, both natural and human. The SEALs' mastery of their environment, their ability to predict enemy movements, and their unwavering commitment to life had not only saved her, but had ensured that every decision was executed with zero margin for error. It was a level of professionalism and dedication that transcended ordinary understanding. In those quiet moments aboard the submerged vehicle, Elena began to grasp a deeper truth. Courage was not only about facing danger, but about controlling it. The SEALs had imposed order on chaos, turning the ocean's unpredictability and the kidnappers' aggression into an environment in which survival was possible. She felt an overwhelming gratitude for the precision, training, and discipline that had shaped her rescue. Her own fear, though intense, had been met with a force beyond comprehension, a force capable of mastering the ocean itself. As the rendezvous point approached, Elena's rescuers remained vigilant. Every movement, every adjustment, every observation was executed with meticulous care. They had not just saved her, they had maintained control over an unpredictable environment, ensuring that her extraction was complete without incident. The calm efficiency with which they moved was almost otherworldly, a stark contrast to the chaos she had experienced mere hours before. It was a testament to human capability, training, and courage when applied to the most extreme circumstances imaginable. Finally, the extraction was complete. Elena was safely aboard a larger vessel, wrapped in additional blankets and receiving immediate medical attention. The SEALs maintained security, scanning the surrounding waters, ensuring that no residual threat remained. Elena, exhausted and shivering, allowed herself a moment to reflect on the incredible chain of events. She had faced the merciless power of the ocean, the threat of human violence, and her own exhaustion, and yet she had survived. And in that survival, she had witnessed the extraordinary skill, bravery, and precision of those trained to dominate even the most hostile environments. Elena's mind lingered on the enormity of what had occurred. She realized that her ordeal was not only a testament to her own will to survive, but also to the unmatched skill and courage of the Navy SEALs. They had confronted the abyss, neutralized every threat, and ensured that life triumphed over chaos. And while the world outside would never see the silent, calculated effort that had saved her, she would never forget it. The ocean, the waves, the relentless danger all had been mastered by human skill, turning what could have been tragedy into survival. As the sun climbed higher over the horizon, Elena Matthews allowed herself to rest, her body still trembling, but her mind filled with awe. She had been rescued from the abyss, and her life had been reclaimed through skill, courage, and an unyielding commitment to excellence. The SEALs had entered the darkness, dominated it, and emerged victorious. And Elena, though battered and exhausted, carried the profound understanding of the extraordinary human capability that had guided her from the brink of death to safety. The sun had risen fully over the horizon, painting the ocean in brilliant gold and crimson. The violent waves of the previous night had calmed into a rhythmic, almost peaceful lull, as if the sea itself was acknowledging the conclusion of an extraordinary ordeal. Elena Matthews sat aboard the extraction vessel, wrapped in layers of blankets, her body still trembling from the residual chill and the adrenaline that had kept her alive for so many hours. Her mind, though exhausted, began to process the enormity of what had just transpired, the terror, the struggle, and the astonishing rescue that had saved her life. Commander Jack Hayes remained nearby, his eyes scanning the surrounding waters even as the immediate danger had long passed. To him, vigilance was never optional. It was ingrained, a reflex honed by years of service. Yet even he allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. Every calculation, every command, every risk taken had culminated in success. The SEAL team had entered a chaotic environment, the unpredictable ocean, hostile human forces, and a race against time, and had imposed order with flawless precision. Every operator had executed their role to perfection, proving, once again, why the Navy SEALs were among the most elite and disciplined warriors in the world. Elena's gaze wandered across the calm waters. The ocean that had threatened to consume her now seemed serene, almost forgiving. Her memory replayed every harrowing moment, the crushing waves, the icy grip of the sea, the masked kidnappers who had thrown her into the abyss. Each memory was now tempered by the knowledge that she had survived. Her survival, she realized, was not the product of chance or luck, but of an extraordinary combination of her own resilience and the unmatched skill of the SEALs. The realization brought both awe and gratitude, emotions too profound for words. As medical personnel checked her vital signs and administered warmth and fluids, Elena reflected on the lessons she had learned. Courage was not simply a matter of facing danger. It was about maintaining focus, adapting to circumstances, and persevering despite overwhelming odds. She had faced her fears, yet it was the precision, discipline, and unwavering commitment of the SEALs that had transformed near-certain death into survival. She marveled at their ability to dominate an environment as unpredictable as the ocean, neutralize human threats with surgical precision, and coordinate an operation of such complexity without a single misstep. A team gathered briefly to debrief. Each SEAL operator reviewed the mission successes and noted minor adjustments for future operations, though the mission itself had been executed flawlessly. Every variable tide, wave, wind, and enemy behavior had been accounted for. Each operator had performed in perfect synchrony, creating a seamless invisible shield that had protected Elena from harm. The efficiency and professionalism were staggering, a testament to years of training, relentless discipline, and a commitment to excellence that transcended ordinary understanding. Elena, though physically recovering, felt her mind awaken to a broader understanding of human capability. The mission had been more than a rescue. It was a demonstration of what could be achieved when courage, skill, and preparation converged in the most extreme conditions imaginable. She realized that survival was never solely about physical endurance. It was also about mastery of environment, strategy, and the unwavering determination of those who acted in her defense. The SEALs had controlled forces far beyond their natural limits, turning chaos into order and danger into opportunity for triumph. As the vessel approached the rendezvous point with the larger extraction team, Elena's thoughts turned to the consequences of the ordeal. The kidnappers had been neutralized, their plans thwarted, and the immediate threat eliminated. Yet she also understood the broader lesson. Human lives could be preserved, even in the most unforgiving environments, when skill, discipline, and courage were applied without hesitation. The operation had demonstrated not only the power of training and expertise, but also the ethical imperative of using such capabilities to protect the innocent. Hayes offered Elena a reassuring nod. "You've shown incredible strength and resilience," he said. "But it's important to remember, this mission wasn't just about endurance. It was about coordination, preparation, and the ability to act decisively in extreme conditions. That's what saved you?" Elena absorbed his words, realizing that her experience had given her a new perspective on courage, survival, and the extraordinary capacities of human skill. Her fear and panic had been overwhelming, yet it was the unseen, disciplined guardians who had turned the tide in her favor. The extraction team docked at a secure facility, where Elena would receive full medical attention and debrief with authorities. Yet the most profound revelations were not found in the reports or medical checkups. They were found in the quiet reflection of what had transpired. She thought of the countless details she hadn't seen, the divers' calculated movements beneath the waves, the coordination of flanking teams, the neutralization of patrols without detection, and the precision that allowed every aspect of the mission to unfold flawlessly. It was a lesson in mastery, discipline, and the extraordinary capacity of the human mind and body when applied with purpose. For the SEALs, the mission concluded as all missions did, with quiet professionalism and an awareness that success is often invisible to the world. They had entered the darkness, confronted chaos and danger, and emerged victorious. Yet their actions would remain largely unrecognized beyond the immediate participants. For Elena, however, the impact was deeply personal. She had witnessed firsthand the extraordinary courage and skill required to dominate both human and natural threats. Survival had been reclaimed, not by chance, but through the disciplined mastery of those committed to protecting life at all costs. As Elena prepared to leave the facility, she paused for one last reflection on the events. The ocean, once a merciless adversary, had been transformed into a stage for courage, skill, and precision. The kidnappers, once seemingly powerful, had been rendered powerless by strategy, coordination, and execution. And she, though exhausted and shaken, had emerged alive, bearing witness to the extraordinary capabilities of those trained to operate in extreme environments. The experience had reshaped her understanding of fear, resilience, and the unseen forces that can tip the balance between life and death. The lessons of the ordeal lingered long after her physical recovery. Elena Matthews carried with her a profound respect for the precision, bravery, and discipline of the Navy SEALs. She realized that human skill, when honed to the highest level, could master environments as vast and unpredictable as the ocean, overcome adversaries, both human and natural, and reclaim life from the brink of tragedy. The rescue was more than an act of survival. It was a demonstration of human potential, courage, and the extraordinary impact of teamwork and preparation in the face of overwhelming odds. As she finally stepped onto solid ground, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, Elena understood the depth of what she had experienced. She had survived an ordeal that would have claimed many, witnessed courage and skill that few could comprehend, and emerged with a new appreciation for the discipline, precision, and bravery required to save lives in extreme circumstances. The ocean, the abyss, and the chaos had tested her to the limits of endurance, but it was the unseen mastery of the SEALs that had transformed fear into triumph and near-certain death into survival. In the quiet aftermath, as the story of her rescue would begin to circulate, Elena Matthews carried not only the memories of terror and struggle, but also a profound understanding of human capability. She had learned that courage is not merely the act of facing danger, but the ability to act decisively, with precision and discipline, to reclaim life from the brink of chaos. The Navy SEALs had demonstrated that mastery over the environment, coordination under pressure, and unwavering focus could transform hopeless situations into triumph. And for Elena, that lesson would resonate for the rest of her life.